Alright, so I just got done watching Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, Season 1, Episode 5, Chapter 5, The Song of Mystery. Basically, in this episode, there's sort of a Spanish kind of mythology creature that sort of also reminded me of something from like a Bleach manga, who's terrorizing these sort of suburban neighborhoods where there's a lot of families with kids, and when they play the Song of Mystery, the from a pan flute, the kids turn into sort of like zombie or like angry versions of this Spanish manga monster. Uh, I found that this episode was brilliant. It was fucking brilliant. This episode was great, man. It was so much better than the last one. So basically, like at the beginning of this episode, for one, it starts you off. You have Daphne babysitting this kid named Arthur. Here's this, they're watching this cartoon that's total gibberish, which was actually pretty funny to see. The self-aware kind of thing. I think Tom Kenny, voice of SpongeBob, actually voiced one like all the characters in this cartoon within a cartoon, and it really did like raise the stakes by having Daphne in the cold opening. As we are already familiar with the character Daphne and seeing how she responds to it, and it's directly affects her. That was fantastic. It just got me pumped to raise the stakes. There was a Shaggy says in this episode, "Sugar doesn't make me grow fangs." That's some good writing. It's very funny. Um, he Shaggy and like Velma starts giving Shaggy a hard time for his use of the word like, saying like so much. Like zoinks, man. He is saying like all the time. That's wildly self-aware for Scooby Doo to do. So she makes him put like a rubber band on his wrist and to flick it every time he says like. Yeah, and she tries to change his fashion in this episode. And I found that very interesting to have a character like Velma trying to control Shaggy's behavior, and I think it's more of a matter of she's trying to make him more mature, more willing to be a competent, significant other, which I found it's powerful. It's powerful stuff. However, I think what we'll probably realize as the season goes on. I hope we touch on this more, but is that what makes Shaggy Shaggy is his sort of childlike innocence, his very simple pleasures of just eating and just shooting the shit and hanging out, and how he does he kind of backs down from challenges and from sort of risks, which is in a lot of ways very very mature in my opinion. uh, the plot in this episode was moving very quickly. They kept adding elements, and they all tied together very well. This episode didn't feel too long. It didn't feel too short. It didn't feel like there was a bunch of filler. It was every single beat was good. It incorporated a lot of characters. You had Velma's mom in this episode. You had Fred's dad. Fred's dad puts his son Fred in handcuffs in this episode, which is pretty audacious. Um, there was Pan Flute was an important part of this episode. The bad guy, which his name was K Horrifico, plays a pan flute. And there's sort of this Spanish exchange teacher that comes to the gang's high school. As far as I could tell, it's a high school, and he says, "I play the pan flute recreationally." I love that, man. I love that. I play the pan flute recreationally, I play the pan flute purely for recreational purposes. That's what he says. Then that character was like a very obvious red herring, and they move on with it within 3 or 4 minutes. He stops being a red herring, and he starts contributing to the plot, helping the gang figure it out with his knowledge of the mythology that ties into the villain. In this episode, turns out Fred is struggling with civics class, or is skipping too much school to solve his mysteries, and he gets a tutor to help him out. And it's this, Daphne immediately is like, "Oh, I can help tutor you, Fred. We can be alone," and blah blah blah. It's pretty cute. But his tutor, and he says she, and she's like, "Who is she? Who is this tutor?" And it's this little, short, very, nerdy, hyper intelligent girl who's quite a bit younger than even the gang, but is, clearly excels in everything. And she's very passionate about civics and those kind of things. And yeah, I mean, she's the bad guy. That's what it turns out to be. And you do not expect, totally shocked. I wrote in my notes here, I wrote, shock, shock, shock at the end, in all caps. My notes don't normally look like that. And her motivation was essentially anti-adult. It was anti-ageism, which is something not often tackled at all. And it was beautiful. Yeah. who's your chain guy? That's something Fred says. He asks the Spanish exchange teacher guy when they tie him up to see if he's the monster, because the monster comes out at night, see if he transforms into K Horrifico or anything, and he doesn't. He doesn't. And he asks him who his chain guy is, because he has a bunch of chains. I don't know. Who's your chain guy? So Fred has a chain guy. Let's think about that for a sec. Yeah. Um, yeah, Shaggy is really, really, really funny. The voice acting in this episode felt strange. It may have just been me analyzing it that way, but this cartoon really has the voice acting of, like, it reminds me of sort of mindlessly playing some kind of children's PC game that's quite buggy and having to hear these things. And I don't know, it tripped me out. It was tripping me out this time around. And, the episode, okay, Daphne's upper body strength, proven to still be very good. She pulls Velma out of a window against a whole shit ton of zombie children trying to pull her out of a window. It's like there's like 12 of them trying to pull Velma out of a window, and Daphne has no problem pulling her away from them. Knew it, man. They're keeping it consistent. They're totally keeping that consistent. Scooby's also very strong, it turns out. He's a very strong mouth. Shaggy gets these really tight pants that Velma buys for him, and he's very uncomfortable walking in. And, yeah, Scooby, like, drags him by him at one point because he just can't walk. So Scooby appears to be pretty strong. And then at the end, Shaggy says to Velma, they're all dancing to this pan flute funk music in this radio station that they still hang out at, and I have no idea what the fuck is going on with that radio station still, but I'm curious because it's going to tie into the big picture plot. I've realized, I have some theories. The city they're in is called Crystal Cove, and a big running thing is that the town needs money, it needs tourists, and that a lot of spooky occurrences happen in this town, and the gang is trying to solve them, whereas the police department and the people of the parents of the people, the gang, all want to, like the mayor, Velma's parents run the museum. They want to keep people coming to the town because they're curious about these spectacular going-ons, and they don't want them to be disproven as not being supernatural. So there's perhaps this mass conspiracy going on, where these crazy occurrences are being pulled by the mayor and the police department or something. We'll see. We will see. So Shaggy likes a baggie. That's what we know about this from this episode. Shaggy likes a baggie. Thanks for watching.